Welcome to Just the Metric podcast. In this episode, we present an in-depth discussion with Robert Sasu, a key co-developer of Multivers X. Our conversation will go into the challenges of blockchain scalability and how Multivers X is addressing these challenges. The conversation also covers how Multivers X is fostering real-world adoption of blockchain technology, sheds light on the current context and the future potential of Multivers X. So welcome to the conversation, Robert.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I think it was a superb X day, and it was super great to meet all the community and have a lot of wonderful discussions out there. And I just like that we could share a lot of our work, which we did in the behind. And then we can go on for the broader ecosystem and to work on our vision and to bring the mass adoption which crypto needs.
You are working on many partnerships, and there were a lot of announcements during the Multivers X Day, and we'll be talking about it. But before we go into such details, tell us your story. Like, how did you become the core dev of Multivers X? And finally, why did you start working in this field to start with?
I've had some discussions about Bitcoin were really early, like in 2011 when I was at the university in Bucharest. But I was looking at it only from a technological perspective, how blocks are built, what is proof of work, and then had a few presentations. I didn't own any coin at the time. I didn't even look at the economics, why those kinds of economic matter, because, you are too young and I was pretty much focused on the development. Then life went on, and I was working on as game developer, graphics developer, then in artificial intelligence, in special for self-driving cars in Sibiu. And at one time there was a small meetup in Sibiu. At that time, Elrond was organizing it. It was their first meetup. It was in 2018. And then I went to that meetup. They were very young, so 3 or 4 months old. The company, they were only like 7 people or even less. No, it was less because I was the 7th. After that, I went to the meetup. I started asking questions and then got into discussion with Benjamin and Lucian. I had one of the friends of mine 2 months earlier. He went to, at the time, Elrond. He's the head of business development, Daniel Shed. And then through him, I got into as well, had the discussions, and then in a super fast time, I got into working on the core protocol. At that time, we were I was, as I said, 6 people or 7 people. So it was quite directly in the core protocol. I started to work actually on MetaChain at that time, and then cross-shard transaction processing. Those were one of my first tasks, and it went really well. And since then, we had a lot of coding, a lot of research, a lot of development, and we are still pushing forward for a good future and to bring massive adoption into the blockchain space.
Yeah, and from 2018, it's been a decade-long journey till now. So how does it feel to work on a project for 5 years long and to see the progress and to be in this position right now?
I think it's wonderful. It's one of the best journeys I ever had. I always dream about having or working with a team which can build rockets. I always wanted to be involved in those kinds of projects where there are a multitude of people really creating, really pushing forward on the edge of the technology, bringing in new ideas and moving really fast. And I always wanted to do this. So in this kind of direction, it's like the dream come true, and I kind of like it. One of the things about every X day is that you just got for 2 more years of work for the discussions. So the space is still so vast that you can just build an insane amount of things, but you have to look at this in different angles, and people will start at one point, they will start leveraging the incredible technology of what blockchain can offer. Like, you need this kind of trustworthy layer for transactions, for data, for execution, for verification. You need this. You need for the whole global world. And then it just takes some time when the multiple industries and multiple users will start using it. And it will be only a click, like with internet. It was present for 20 years since the 70s, but got started to be used with the personal computers in the 90s. And then the big push of the internet came with the smartphones, because right now you have billions of users. With the personal computers, you still had only, let's say, hundreds of millions, but the actual big improvement came when you had devices which are so easy to use and you didn't have to install anything. So I think this will go on with the blockchain as well, because the technology offers some of those principles which cannot be done in another way. You need these kinds of consensus. You need these kinds of let's trust in the code and let's trust in multitude of validators running the same service, executing, verifying, creating proofs, sending those proofs, putting the data in. And you don't only need these kind of things between peer to peer. You need these kinds of things between institutions as well. Plus, if the technology is written correctly, it will make processes cheaper for both companies and for both users. Like I like one of the first talk I had about Bitcoin in 11, and I at that time I didn't know about the limitations of Bitcoin, was that at that time was super cheap to make any transaction Bitcoin. It was that, come on, only if I can stand value on a decentralized network, which doesn't need to have trusted third parties like banks or what other kinds of systems as a middleman, I do not have to pay for the middleman. So when I go into a shop and buy something, I just have to pay the fee for that transaction, the small transaction fee for that. I do not have to pay for a payment processor, for a bank, for this, for that. And then everything becomes cheaper. The markets can give out their goods for 1 or 2% cheaper. The markets enjoy it. I enjoy it. And when you look around, if you use about like the technology, about the truth, about the history, which blockchain technology can bring in, it helps a lot of processes for all those companies. Like now you have public databases from where you can make your accounting if you need it without the need of trusted middlemen. And I think in the era with all these with the social media, in the new era post AI, where you have to know which is AI generated and which is user generated on the social media, you have to trust. It would be better to not have to trust only one server who counts your views, but institutions to run multitude of servers which are making a consensus and actually signing that, okay, these were these were the views, because according to these views, you as the creator get paid. And all kinds of these kinds of things become cheaper when you leverage the technology of blockchains as it should be, or the technology of consensus, the technology of building, the technology of having built-in history which cannot be modified. It's super powerful. And once we get into multitude of institutions using it or leveraging it, it will become great. Like it will come with the mass adoption, and I'm quite happy about this.
Yeah, as you rightfully said, the rise of AI actually necessitates a technology like chain, because in a world where you can make deep fakes and you can create unlimited amount of content using AI, I think the need for blockchain will be, necessitated by all these innovations happening in AI. What is the path of Multivers X in bringing that core value proposition of blockchains to the world?
Oh, it will be we have a long list here to go over. I think we were the first blockchain which actually launched a fully sharded ecosystem. And people in the crypto world, they tend to attack, let's say, sharded ecosystem because they say that they are not composable, not this, not that, wrong. But when it's built correctly, it is quite something which is a must. As we see in every big system, and any blockchain wants to be a big system because any blockchain wants to have billions of users. To have billions of users, you need scaling. And if you look at every big system like YouTube, Google, Facebook, Meta, Twitter, whatever, or any database out there which scales, it's through sharding. They are sharding their processes, they are sharding their data, they are sharding their communications, they are sharding everything. Not like one big center server and everybody gets into it. No, it's you want to give the jobs out to as many as possible. And that's the way you can enable actual scaling, by enabling sharding at the whole levels. And in terms of blockchain, you have the state, you have the processing, and then you have the communication layer, the peer-to-peer. And that's what we achieved through sharding. And this achieves horizontal scaling. On top of that, we are coming with vertical scaling as well. This means parallel execution in terms of inside shard. And this will leverage the hardware, which is getting updated every year. And we do not have to use the best military-grade hardware. We can use consumer-grade hardware, and still, which is getting evolved as the years goes on. And this will enable more transactions to be processed in a less time, thus with less cost. Sharding as one alone will not resolve all these problems, because if you take the principles of how Ethereum and Ethereum-based, EVM-based token standards are working, you cannot actually do sharding on those, because you would lose composability. Composability means applications which can call each other and communicate with each other. And then you have atomic composability. If that in these kinds of communication, something went wrong, the whole process gets reverted. These kinds of things are super important at the time of, or in the time of blockchain. ERC20, for example, is built, you cannot really do it. As when you want to make a swap on Uniswap, you are actually at least communicating with 3 contracts. You are communicating with the token from what you want to swap to Uniswap, and then Uniswap contract is communicating with at least the destination contract on terms of tokens. So you have 3 kinds of contracts which has to be, let's say, atomically composable for any kind of token transfer, because if one of the transfers fails, you would like to revert everything. And then we came with the in-protocol token standard solution, which brings like an insane amount of good principles into the blockchain space. It actually brings the perspective of actual cash into the blockchain space. Because in Ethereum, you can think about ERC contracts like they are bank deposit, because it's not actually in your wallet. It's actually in a smart contract in which your wallet can access it. So it is not in your pocket. It's on a third-party deposit box. And what's happening even worse is that you have to give access, in this case for a DEX, to take out money from your third-party box, the ERC contract, and to operate anything on that. And then you will get back some results. With the ESDT token standard, what we built, you are actually having all those tokens in your account. Actually, as data is built, it's actually inside your own account. So inside your own account, you have all the NFTs, all the funds and everything. And then the execution model looks like transfer and execute. So I will take out of my pocket a set of tokens, whatever I want, 3 or 4 types of tokens. Then I go into a store, let's say a DEX or a marketplace. I buy something and I get the new tokens back directly into my pocket. And this is how it happens on Multivers X, like in a super layman terms. And then it is actually reinforcing how digital cash how cash works, because that's how you take money out of your pocket. You go into a store, buy something, get back, and you get back with the goods. And as everything like this is handled by the protocol, you have the full across shards, because I can go into any market, which can be in any other shard. Like you go with your cash in any other city, and if I cannot buy what I wanted to buy with the price I wanted to buy, I just drive back and with my money in my pockets. It's like the same kind of parallel you can take it. And after a few times, let's say 1 year or 2 years, we actually figured it out that the transfer and execute system and having everything which can be tokenized and the tokens which are handled by the protocol actually had any kind of composability, because at that moment you do not have to know what kind of function, what kind of output one smart contract execution has, because you can just receive the tokens back. And if you don't like the tokens, you just drop them. So and everything being tokenized, it gets super simple. You can launch your liquid staking smart contract in one protocol, in one shard, which is actually communicating across shard with the meta chain to delegate your tokens, and you receive your liquid staking e-gold. But that's the only thing you build. Then somebody else can come and using only the token identifier, they set up the token identifier, they can create a pool. That pool can be an AMM, it can be a constant model, it can be whatever. And actually the developer who builds the liquid staking and the developer who builds the DEX or a lending or whatever, they do not have to talk about each other. And not only that they do not have to talk, that it's like there is like no direct communication between the contract, and they don't need to have direct communication because communication is done by tokens and not contracts. So whenever I go and, for example, I swap in a DEX, it's not 3 or 4 contracts are communicating with each other. No, it's only one contract execution. So it's much faster, everything, because you have a token transfer execution handled by the protocol. Then you go into a contract, you execute whatever the contract. Once you get back the tokens, you are good. And it's much, much faster than have all kinds of communication. So it becomes clearer and clearer how much in-protocol token standards help. Then we see on ERC that they have a lot of draining problems, users draining, because ERC tokens actually, you have to allow another contract to consume money from the third-party deposit box, where you put your money, your tokens. And how it was initially imagined, it was that when I want to make any swap on Uniswap, for example, it was imagined that I would allow only dollars to be transferred, then I execute something, and I am safe. But the ERC token standards allows for a user to allow infinity. This means that I allow contract X to take infinity amount of money out of the third-party deposit box where my tokens are kept. Then because Ethereum costs a lot, users and developers got lazy and they are approving infinity for everything. So imagine that you are just one approve infinity away from your funds getting drained. You might say that you are a professional. You never happened this. You use MetaMask. You use all kinds of protections there. But if you check Twitter, even MetaMask is not protecting you from everything. There are X wallet solutions that one of them might try to protect you, but they might not get all the phishing attacks. And if you look around, all the professionals have fallen. Even was fished for $100 million. But those were actually the professional traders, like not. And these kinds of phishing attacks can happen even if you have a ledger or a hardware, because you allow somebody else to take money from you.
Yeah, it is like giving permissions. By clicking a wrong link, you click on something, you are automatically giving permission for some contract to access your wallet. Just in 2023, you have lost almost $1 billion via hacks. Blockchain ecosystem, which is a very small ecosystem, and losing $1 billion is crazy. So security is a very big topic in blockchain. And how do you view this problem? And how is Multivers X solving this problem of security?
So at the first time, we just didn't like anything with the ERC token standards. We just didn't like the approve mechanism, and we went for the transfer and execute, and we saw how much it resolves. After a few moments or months, we figured out it even resolves reentrancy attacks, because there is no malicious transfer there is no need to call from a contract transfer from a token contract, which you never know what it executes in the back. So there were no reentrancy issue problems happening on the Multivers X, which is actually, I think we are one of the first chains to have something like this. On any other chain, you have weekly errors, but this is for the builders. So we make even the builders a safer place with composability, token standards, Rust framework, and no reentrancy, safe math, a lot of libraries, a lot of opcodes, building a lot of goodies. And in terms of user security, as mentioned before, like nobody can drain your wallets like this. And at the first thing, we were having the same, let's say, same experience as any other blockchain has, that you have your keys and your funds. You can, and if you make a mistake, it's your problem as a user that you made a mistake. But once we launched, we saw that more and more people are getting their funds hacked by phishing sites, which in general would be called validate your seed phrase. In general, a user doesn't know what a seed phrase means. And it's a wrong assumption from developers to know that that you can explain for the users through education what seed phrase means. If you want to do education, then probably in 50 years, you will have mass adoption in the blockchain ecosystem. Until then, it will be hard. As we look around, people are sharing credit card numbers online, PIN codes online. They just don't understand what a PIN code even means. So you have to protect users otherwise. And Exportal, our application, we introduced that user cannot see their seed phrase only after he has to click a few tabs, buttons, and in the end, he has to write, if I share my seed phrase, then I will lose all my funds. And only after that, your seed phrase was shown. And even with this, people were still losing funds. So they just didn't get at all what these kinds of things mean. And then you cannot really oblige every people to buy a ledger. Really, using a ledger protects your funds super greatly. But for most of the users who are accustomed to a phone to use everything, they don't have a home PC, a laptop, or a computer. They do everything from their phone. You cannot assume that they will use ledger. So we had to make better primitives. And this is why we introduced Guardians. Guardians is like a secondary signature directly protecting the user at the protocol level. So we do not externalize these kinds of safety nets, but build inside the protocol. And then the guard for any transaction the user signs, the transaction needs to have two signatures, one from the user and one from the Guardian service. How did we integrate it? The first, or we have two types of integration. One is through invisible guardians, which means that a secondary seed phrase is saved on your phone. It's private encrypted. The user cannot touch it. So even if the user loses his first seed phrase, the primary seed phrase, the Guardian seed phrase is not lost, and then nobody can sign any transaction, only the user. Then you have the 2FA service, because as we look around, as web technologies evolved and as banking ecosystem evolved, everybody is pushing for two-factor authentication to keep the user safer. We can bring two-factor at the protocol level, even if in a decentralized way. So we have a multitude of Guardian services which work to a two-factor authentication. The user signs the transaction, then it sends to the Guardian service, one of those Guardian service, and then receives the 2FA. He confirms the 2FA, the Guardian service signs it. It puts the secondary signature as well, and then the transaction gets executed. Otherwise, no gas is consumed, nothing is executed. And the user can change Guardians whenever he wants, but he needs to wait like 20 days. So there are fallback mechanisms in order to ensure that users are kept safe. This we actually eliminated any kinds of draining stuff, and users are really enjoying it. And whenever any even builders or fintech technology, when they start to see how powerful this is, they are really enjoying it. So they are just like amazed that we could do it and why nobody's building these kinds of things. And it's one thing that when one user loses funds, but when there are funds lost every day, then it's a systematic fault. And then somehow the responsibility is to those who build the system. And then you have to come up with a better system, build a better system. And we have to learn how Google Pay, Apple Pay works, or how our phone works, because they are actually making the whole ecosystem much safer. Their own ecosystem is much safer. I tend to pay more through Apple Pay directly than entering my uh, card details into a secondary website because it's much safer. And then when you offer the users a faster and safer way of doing their own things, they will not make stupid mistakes.
So, what is the criteria for selecting a guardian? So, is there a list of guardian services like you can opt from?
Yeah, actually, the first option is to have your own invisible guardian in your phone. That's the first option you choose. And if you want the 2FA, that we are running one of the service, and then there are a couple of validators running their services like that, and everybody had 100% uptime and everything. They don't have to pay any gas, so they have only the server costs. But they are running servers for the validating the Multivers X layer. So it's everything. It's okay in this side. It's free for any users to choose. But let's say invisible guardians are the fastest.
Okay.
There is no back and forth communication, and then you are good.
And there's this big problem in the Ethereum ecosystem, the problem of blind signing. That means you interact with a particular website that shows something else than underneath it because it's just messages passing between contracts. How does Multivers X prevent such things from happening?
So in the first thing, you don't have to give permission of allowance of draining your wallet. This is the first. And then you don't see it. And secondary, as any or all the tokens are in your account, and then you are actually signing if you want to transfer out tokens, you have a specific function you have to call, the multi-S transfer or the ESDT transfer. Then this kind of things is super easily interpreted by any wallet. Whenever you sign into a third-party website, and then when you put all the details you want there and you click sign, it will send the transaction data you are going to sign to the wallet. This wallet can be the DeFi wallet, it can be the X portal, it can be the web wallet. And there, the web wallet, you will actually see, I am sending out these kinds of tokens. I am sending out $100. I am sending out 100 EGLD. I'm sending out 10 NFTs of, I don't know, Cow or Apes or whatever. So you are actually seeing those things. And actually, if you have a multi-transfer, you will see each of every transfer out there, and you have to confirm, and then you do the interaction.
So because of the native asset standard, the wallets will be able to recognize these assets, and then wallets can tell what exactly, because these are not, in case of EVM, these are just messages passing between smart contracts. So there is no real interpretation of what's happening. But as there is this native asset standard, wallet can recognize.
So directly they know that what will happen.
Okay.
And then the users, it will show out to the user, okay, that you are transferring these kind of tokens out there.
Right. Now, going to the topic of scalability, like Coin did not have any real scalability roadmap, but when Ethereum came, one of the first things Ethereum was talking about sharding. And sharding they had a sharding based roadmap, but it eventually changed. But a lot of blockchains that came after Ethereum took sharding as the primary scaling approach. Like not only Multivers X, like Nia, Radix, a lot of other blockchains took this approach. Why do you think Ethereum did not pursue that path and Multivers X went to that path, and you have your own sharding roadmap with adaptive sharding and more? What do you think about the broader scalability approach of the layer 1 blockchains right now? And could you talk more about the sharding approach of Multivers X?
One of the problems with Ethereum had with sharding is how to do these composability problems. I talked a little bit earlier. And then they didn't want to change the ERC contracts, or they didn't want to enshrine token standards directly in the protocol. Then you have all kinds of backward compatibility problems, all kinds of industry giants which integrate in your solutions. And I don't know, people are just reluctant to change, or developers are just reluctant to change. And they were thinking about all kinds of solutions like yanking or asynchronous calls, or a lot of crazy solutions, or finalizing all the transfers and data at the end of the epoch. That was one of their approaches. So as they have the system right now, and with the token standards, you just cannot shard directly because you are still have to keep all your data into one smart contract in one shard. And even if you, let's say, shard that kind of smart contract, how do you shard? You replicate everything in all shards, then you don't have no more state optimization, or you keep a set of users here, a set of users there, but how do you interact with those? Do you make the users to, if I want to swap USDC in one DEX, which is in one shard, I first have to move my USDC to that shard and then back, and you have to sign a lot of transactions. And I think these kinds of things just didn't work out. Didn't work out as the whole ecosystem. And that's why I suppose they just dropped it down and they said that, okay, we are layer one, and then everybody will go to the layer twos and the zero knowledge rollups, which again, for the user is not so easy because there is no one vision of one way of easily interacting with the blockchain across the space, across all the tools, across all the applications. Like I want to try one game, I shouldn't have to search for the bridge for that game, bridge some tokens, play the game, bridge back. And there are a lot of hurdles and all kinds of hurdles like this. It's just not good for the users. And when you have L2s, but you have different type of gas tokens, then you have to buy the gas token L1, bridge that one, because otherwise you cannot sign anything on L2. So it just gets really complicated for the user, even with the current roadmap. And then in order to scale, you have to shard. So you can say that, okay, we will using bigger and bigger data centers, bigger machine, but at one time, the low will not work. More slow will not work, and then you will not be able. And when you have good technology which can resolve shard, why don't you use that? So it's like you have a win situation. You can win with Moore's law, and you can still win with sharding as well. So you can combine both of them. Also creating such a system that the user doesn't have to think in which shard one user is or what application in which shard it is. And it doesn't have to give approvals. It just goes and executes. And with the new roadmap, with the new updates which are coming, it will be pretty fast, even cross shard. So it will be 1 second intra shard, 2 seconds cross shard. The user will not feel it. It will be super fast, and everything you can enjoy even right now. It's like any kinds of operations you still enjoy as you want. And even developers, they do not have to think about shards.
I don't know if it's correct information from my side, but as of now, the finality of a transaction on Multivers is around 40 seconds or something. Is it?
It's, let's say it's 4 times 6 seconds. And if you have cross shard, then you double it, 48 seconds. But we have a big set of improvements coming for signatures, consensus, and finality as well. So you will have one block finality on shard, one block finality on meta chain. And then, so you will go, and with the reducing of the block time, you will have 1 second finality. And with the power of parallel processing, we will be even with one, we will increase to like almost 100,000 or even more transactions per second per shard per block. So it will be like,
so a block time will be reduced to 1 second.
Yeah, we have still now, even right now, we have a super powerful and efficient consensus mechanism. It only takes three rounds of communications between the leaders and validators compared to a normal PBFT, which is 5 rounds. So actually optimized out a lot. Then we found out how we can create better BLS multi-signatures. We found out how we can increase the consensus group size, which is right now 63 on the shard, to 400. So everybody signs it. And then we eliminated the leader as the single point of failure when creating the final data. And using all this, once the block is signed, it's final.
Okay.
And using all this with the 3 rounds of communication, we can go down to 1 second. And then what we build even more is that the leader can prepare for the next step, can prepare the block for the next round in the previous round. So it's a pre-creation of the block. And what is even more differently than most of the chain is that in most of the chain, the leader creates the block, executes everything, and it can take 1 second, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever, half of the block time in general. the leader executes, not half, like 30% of the block time. Then he sends out to others. The others spend again 30% of the time, and then signature, communication, everything is fine. But you see, on the 30% of the time when the leader executes or the validators executes, the others are waiting and not doing anything. So with the consensus V2, the leader doesn't execute. The leader only selects transactions, puts into the block, and sends out.
Okay.
And everyone executes in parallel. And even the selection of how the selection is built, it's actually built in such a way that selection is, let's say, pre-selected. The transaction pool is always sorted. And then you just have to take the top 10,000 transactions or top 2,000 transaction and then put it into the algorithm which randomly shuffles them and randomly and deterministically shuffles them. And then you create a block. And so it takes less than 100 milliseconds to create a block in this kind of time. And then everybody executes it.
So is it a kind of builder proposal separation?
You would say that, but it's like much more built into the ecosystem. Like you don't have separate binaries for builders and separate binaries for validation. It's together, but we just want to parallelize everything, every execution, and to make nodes to not wait for the others, but to always have a job of building it. And that's how we can process and create a better system. And actually the new consensus V2 is actually working on the sovereign shards. We haven't got it yet. And at X day we demonstrated the 1 second block with 2 billions of gas.
Okay. So now we can get into these topics of adaptive sharding and the sovereign shards. I think sovereign shard is already implemented. That update went live already, I guess.
No, sovereign shard is being implemented because we have a roadmap for it. We had a demo at X day. Builders can start using them and build their own forks and start to enjoy communication on the testnet and everything around it. But we still have a roadmap of 3 to 6 months of developing because we want to build everything together. But if we go back first in the adaptive sharding, what it means is that the network will grow its shards based on demand. So right now we have those 3 shards and 1 meta chain, which is running 3,200 nodes. And then when the blocks are getting full for a long time, and then we will have enough validators and everything like that, then 1 shard can split. So if we have 4 shards and then after that 5, 6, 7, 8, these kinds of things. So you are scaling horizontally. So as the demand grows, you are scaling horizontally. And then, but right now it's not yet needed with the current demand. We hope that there will be enough demand to do these kinds of things. This is like how adaptive sharding works. And when there is no demand, it will shrink. But hopefully there is like always demand in these kind of things. One of the important things is that we use consumer grade computers. So it's not a fortune to run those. Right now it costs around $50 per month to run those on a cloud service. But if you run it at home, then you are just paying for the electricity and the internet, but you are always having internet at home. So it gets less and less. And right now you can run everything in $500 machines. So it's quite cheap to do those. And then we have the big topic of sovereign shards. Sovereign shards came as the need for specific DApp chains. DApp specific means application specific chains. When an application wants to run their own set of validators, to have their own set of rules, to do whatever, a little bit more custom things, but he still wants to be connected to the global network. And I think that we took almost 1 year of research and start of development on sovereign shards. We looked around how others are building, how others are creating, and we wanted to make an ecosystem which is close together, tightly fit together. And we wanted to achieve the thing that, from a user perspective, to be as simple to interact with an application on a sovereign shard as it is in the Multivers X ecosystem as a cross-shard transaction. And we learned how cross-shard transactions are built, and we built the same system on the sovereign shards. In a sovereign shard, one of the examples I'm always using is that you play a game on sovereign shard, you win an NFT, then with one transaction only, you can list that NFT on the global marketplace. And that was once the dream of blockchain, to have a global marketplace with a lot of local applications running, but connected to the global financial system. So that's how sovereign shards are built in this way. Actually, it's a new binary starting from the validator binary we have. And then this kind of binary will have the bridge between the sovereign and the main chain built in into the consensus and the processing mechanism of the validators. So the validators keep the back and forth of communication with the transactions, and they will do a sort of things like cross-shard transactions are processed from the perspective when the destination shard is actually watching the meta chain headers, what kind of mini blocks are coming to his shard, then he's syncing those things and pushing mini blocks back and forth. And this is the execution model we take between the main chain and the sovereign chain. And it's the job of the validator. So there is no need for trust on another set of like bridge, another set of multisig, or another set of things like you have on L2s. A lot of L2s are on Ethereum are protected by like 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5 multisig admin keys. And come on, it's not good for decentralization, not good against any attacks. We know the Lazarus group attacks on bridges with multisigs and all kinds of things. And it's not funny at all. So it's not a responsible thing to do, to have these kinds of solutions in L2s. And then we want to do this the proper way. And actually from the X portal application, for you to enter and get out or use whatever application you see, and without the need of, let's say, of creating true transactions like bridge and after then something execute, you just transfer and execute everything. So you are directly connected everywhere, one wallet, one interaction, enjoy. And it will be fully customizable. Like the gas model can be customizable, the VMs can be changed. It will be composable and interoperable with all the main chain assets. So the same liquid state ego ID, token ID exists so when you, let's say, execute something or bridge to the dApp chain, the same token ID will be kept. So you can run the same applications with the same setup here and there. We just leverage the technology in such a way to help builders and developers.
Okay, what are the prerequisites for someone launching a sovereign shard? There need to be minimum amount of validators who are already validating Multivers X shards, or like how can someone spin up a sovereign shard?
Technically speaking, that code is open source, so everybody could run it. But let's say from an SDK perspective, or how we think about it, is that you will create a configuration of your sovereign shard, which configuration will be saved on the main chain, in which you say that, okay, these are the criteria for validators to enter. This kind of EGLD has to be staked, or this kind of other tokens have to be staked, or I want these validators like with whitelist, all kinds of combinations like this. And then through that configuration, he will say that, okay, this is the start date, this is the Genesis block. Let's run, let's build. And actually there will be like no hard coded limitations on these kinds of things. We may possibly put like a minimum value to pay, like the ESDT token. To launch an ESDT token is 0.5 EGLD. We might put something for the sovereign shards as well to use those funds for building further, but it's not yet discussed. Then probably it will be a minimum of 1 EGLD to stake. One of the from economic perspective, it will be fun because in order for a user but we will recommend some of the things. One of the things we will recommend is that those who run sovereign shards to discuss with the validators, staking providers from the main ecosystems who are there and providing valuable services, and to use them as well as a set of validators, because then the users will trust the sovereign chain more. The more validators there are, the more reputable validators they will trust that kind of system more. But when you will you want to become a validator, and let's say you stake 100 EGLD, that EGL it will be delegated for you. So whilst you will be validating on the sovereign chain, you will earn EGLD rewards on the main chain. Your EGLD is used, and this kind of EGLD will be like some funds, which could be slashable if not us, but if the sovereign system finds a slashable of funds, then it could be slashables. And this is how you make proof of stake to happen on those kind of systems, with, let's say, forcing them to stake a set of equal, which is slashable, but which is earning them rewards as they should be. One of the powers with the sovereign shards is that it can be run in private ecosystem as well. Institutions can run it, but still be connected through the bridge, and they can make only the bridge to be public, but everything is verified. So even the bridge smart contracts and everything out there, they have to go through BLS multi-signature and a lot of verifications. So I am quite happy about how we resolved all these things. And one more thing about this is that as we have multiple innovations on Multivers X, you have the relayer transactions in which a relayer can wrap a user transaction.
Like, is it like this account abstraction? Is it or similar?
More powerful. The relayer cannot sort how he wants the user operations to be done. So the user signs a transaction. It's a complete transaction data, but the user doesn't have EGLD to pay for the gas. The relayer takes that transaction, puts as an inner transaction, and pays for the gas for the user. It is resolved at the protocol level. So the protocol checks the relay transaction signature, the user transaction signatures, makes sure that the relayer pays for the user, then executes the user transaction without any relayer, only the user transaction. So any user transaction can be relayed by relayer services. And then we have the paymaster smart contract, in which it's a general one. You can make users to pay for the relayer services in form of ESDT token and still execute the full user transaction. So by combining this, you bring in complete usability. So I will be able to, even if the sovereign shard has another type of token for the gas, I can go there and enjoy the application without ever worrying about gas or knowing what kind of gas that system is using, because I can pay with my, RepTGD or USDC or whatever token from the mainnet, and then the relayers will come and do my transactions. One of the importance, for example, for sovereign, it can think about like games, Web3 games. And in Web3 games, we would like to have a multitude of servers who are making consensus and pushing state change data, but as they are running the system, they shouldn't pay for gas. So they can create a gas model in which validators do not pay for gas because they are running a trusted system and they will flood the gate. Or let's say what set of state change operations can be free of gas. Then you have the users. And then you have premium users who bought your games, and because of they are premium, they hold an NFT. So because they hold an NFT, you run a relayer service which actually runs their transactions for them in the sovereign shard. Because come on, if that user paid for a subscription, then it can happen with the relay transaction as well. Or I play the game, I earn game tokens, and using my earned game tokens, I pay for the gas for everything. This is not how everything's supposed to be. I shouldn't supposed to buy gas token or do a lot of things like that. And I'm quite happy about these kinds of combination of multitude of technological pieces we brought in, and then combining them and creating a better product. So like now institutions can come and they can hold only stable coins and execute everything using stable coin, because there will be a relay service who relays the transactions for them.
Can you compare with the account abstraction concept of Ethereum? Some people say account abstraction is not a good idea on the Ethereum side, but here it sounds really powerful. So can you elaborate on the differences between the account abstraction on Ethereum and Multivers X?
I don't like account abstraction as it is right now on Ethereum. I think at one time I think there was the 3074 proven proposal from Ethereum. They had the out call or authorization opcodes. The authorization opcodes is somewhat like similar to Guardian, where you could have a relayer to push your authorized operations to be executed. And that was like enshrined in protocol, and it was much, it was faster. Like now account abstraction, it's like you are not only having all your, like with now with an account in Ethereum, it's only key value and that's it, or private key, public key, and a balance and a loss, and that's only. And you have all those assets you hold that are in the third party deposit box, everything. Not only that, but now you will have a contract which is actually accessing all those third party account boxes. So it's not your money, it's the contract's money as a state, as how the state is built. So in an account abstraction, it will write that, okay, Robert has $100, but in the bank account of the dollar, DC contract, it will be written here, the account abstraction contract owns the $100. And then you will have, so I see a few problems. One is that imagine even right now, people losing funds because of draining attacks, because allow infinity on a stupidity, on a stupid tape. Now imagine a combination of thousands of users together in one ERC 4337 and one bad signature from one of the users or one of the relayers out there, which will compromise the funds of the entire system. So this is one of the big wrong thing. Secondary thing is that some of the account abstractions is in general implemented, or the operations which are doing in name of the users, operations done in the name of the users are executed by, let's say, or relayers, but these relayers can choose the order of the operations. So even if MEVI's minor extracted value is a problem on Ethereum, even right now with 4337, it's even bigger one.
Yeah.
Because the list of the operations can be easily manipulated as you want. And then we will see some of the implementations where you have a set of whitelisted addresses which can push the operation codes, because you will need it. Because if I have a Google login only, then that kind of information has to be taken out by a centralized system who will make my operation up through after my signature on the chain. And come on, we are going back into the centralized ecosystems. So I think enshrining more operation possibilities directly on chain and giving the users more power in a safe and decentralized way is the goal. And 4337 is just centralizing too much and building already on a wrong ecosystem, on the wrong principles, a set of new principles which are going to explode, I think. That's my view.
This is a trend that we are seeing continuously happening in the Ethereum ecosystem. They are not building anything enshrined into the layer 1 protocol, but trying to push out things to more superficial layers and creating this kind of problems. One of the reasons why they have this problem with Lido right now is that they do not have this enshrined liquid staking. They push it out to the much more superficial layers. And then you have another attack vectors that maybe you have anticipated it in the beginning, but you don't think that, oh, it could be such a big problem. But when it really happens in real life, then okay, how can I solve it now? I think it is a continuous episode that's happening in the Ethereum space. So
Yeah. I think even not necessarily liquid staking had to be enshrined, but at least a delegation system. So right now you cannot stake only if you stake 32 ETH and only if you add BLS keynote. So what Lido put is that they put one contract above and then you get into, and that contract will put 32 ETH and you will receive the liquid stake variation of that one. But actually the Lido contract is the one who has access to all the funds in the Ethereum staking contract, and it's getting centralized in this way. And then what you cannot do as a user is to delegate to multitude of people easily. And that's another way. The other way we did in the Multivers X ecosystem, although we started only with a staking system. And then we thought that every staking provider will build their own delegation systems, and there will be all kinds of delegation contracts. We saw one, we didn't saw that happening. And the second one, we saw that it is a big barrier for any validator to build and maintain their own delegation contracts. And
Yep.
only a few can do it. So we built internally, and we released as a system directly in Sharding protocol. So now one user can delegate to multitude of staking providers easily from their wallet, from the rig portal, without the need of clicking into multiple dApps. And even all the staking providers can become a staking providers directly from the wallet. So they do not even have to manage a website. So you destroyed some of the barriers, the knowledge barriers. Then you could start and let people build what was more important. And then it came the liquid staking contracts, in which we built our first version and released to the public. And right now there are at least 4 liquid staking providers. It's Hatom, so let's start with Vesta because they were the first, Salsa, Hatom, and Juaspap right now. But what is nice about them is that they tend to delegate to multiple staking providers, not to only one, because now as the system is built, you are not obliged to go into one. You can go to all of them.
Like a basket of validators, you can
say. Yeah, basket of validators. So it doesn't get centralized. And then it's taking phase 4, where we want to enforce from configuration that the staking provider cannot become bigger than 1% of the ecosystem. This to enhance the Nakamoto coefficient of the ecosystem. Then these kinds of liquid staking contracts, they will be obliged to even go even wider. So I think enshrining or adding these kinds of limitations in the system, it's good, because otherwise you get entities which gets too centralized. Like in this way, you have Lido.
Okay. Yeah. You can always think, okay, we can push this out to keep the layer 1 simple, because you cannot, like in Ethereum space, you cannot tinker with that a lot. So let's push this out to the superficial layer. But these things always comes back and bites you. And then you think you cannot avoid this problem. And Multiverse is taking a path. You are addressing all these problems and pushing for more decentralization and more capabilities. And I had one question about this adaptive sharding. Adaptive sharding, as you described, means that the system creates shards depending upon the demand. Is there a cap, or is it like what you call a linear scalability method with adaptive sharding? There's no limit, basically. You can add more resources to the system and it will scale depending upon demand. How does that work?
Actually speaking, the meta chain has to validate all the shards which are coming up. And there is, let's say, the meta chain would be some kind of limit in this direction. But the meta chain has to validate only shard header, which is super small, and the signature. So with a few milliseconds of verification for a shard header and the signature, it can run a few thousand shards in parallel without any problem with 1 second blocks. And when we start to reach that, then I think we can come up with some nice solutions to even make more compressed data and then to enable more and more shards. But, we will have the intra-shard scaling as well with the parallelization. So I don't know when, and with the sovereign shards as well, I don't know when we will have the need of, let's say, more than 10 million transactions actually on chain happening per second. Per time. And if we want to go to 10 million transactions per shard constantly, it's only, and with the new code, that would mean only 100 shards. So 100 shards can be easily tackled even right now by the meta chain. So that's not a big deal.
The validators would be automatically distributed equally to different shards.
Yes. So there will be some work to be done in order to validators to gain more validators, because you would like to have a secure system for all the shards, and then you don't want to go too low on the shard size. So it will be not only about demand, but it will be about there's as well how much validators you will be able to run. But when it is lucrative, so when the validator is gaining a lot of value because he runs the system, then we will not have problems finding validators.
Right. Yeah, that was the point I want to get to, because you need like exponentially more number of validators when really the demand kicks in and the adaptive sharding works. This is the function of markets. If there's money to be made from that, people will always come and validate. So regarding scalability, you are pursuing vertical scaling plus horizontal scaling. Vertical scaling with like this more slow concept that computation and storage will get cheaper over time, and horizontal scaling with adaptive sharding and the concept of app chains. That pretty much covers the scalability roadmap. And what is the biggest upgrade coming in the scalability part in the coming months to a year, like 6 to 12 months?
In terms of scalability, as we build already the consensus mechanism directly for the sovereign shards, we want to enable that one on the main chain. It will come with steps. So first it will be increasing the consensus group size from 63 to 400. Then it will be the introducing of consensus V2, which is the leader just prepares the transactions and everybody executes at the same time. Then after that, we can reduce the block size, not the block size, the block time, and a little bit the block size as well, but the block time can be reduced. We will be taking out the confirmation blocks from the shard and as well the meta chain, then reduce more the block size, and then go into the parallel processing as well. And this will come like one step at a time, like in incremental upgrades.
Okay. Great.
Those are like for the next 1 year.
Yeah. And from a decentralization part, one of the most difficult problem with blockchain is how to do decentralized governance, on-chain decentralized governance. And I have seen some discussions regarding this part connected to XDay. And what are your thoughts about on-chain governance? And how are you planning to implement on-chain governance?
Actually, it's already implemented and it will be live from the next upgrade, which is CV 1.6. But before that, even for the activation on RC 1.6, we are going to make an on-chain governance, but with another contract. What we imagined is that every one of the stake delegators, staking providers will have to vote with their own stakes. Then the stakes are accumulated with quadratic voting formula. So we make somehow smaller differences between whales and smaller users. So it will even out and you will need to get more people involved in the voting. And one additional improvements we brought, especially for liquid staking smart contracts or the community delegation smart contract, it's that if the owner of the delegated funds or staked funds is a smart contract, then that smart contract can actually lend out the voting power for their users or delegate out their voting power for the users, because the a contract as itself, it's not a human, cannot vote. Somebody has to vote. So we made a new function where you have a delegate vote, and then it can be called only by a contract. And that contract will say that I delegate this % of the vote to this user, which voted this and that, and this is the signature for that. So this will enable everybody who has even liquid staking, keeps his stake as liquid staking asset. The liquid staking contract will implement this kind of new module, which calls the delegate vote contract, and then you go with your tokens, delegate, go, and you will have the signatures as well. And this is how we want. And then we have a process of off-chain process and the forum, Agora, where we can discuss all the improvements for the next release. We put out all the lists and everything. And then we welcome community members to discuss them, have calls have a governance call in Twitter spaces or on validator calls and discuss all the aspects. And after all the aspects are discussed, we vote, we register the vote, and then if the vote is good, then we upgrade the system.
One of the problems with quadratic voting is that it incentivizes whales to split the wallets. So you have much smaller wallets now. And with quadratic voting, they could have a much bigger voting power. Is there some kind of on-chain identity that you are planning to implement to solve this problem? How are you planning to solve that problem?
At the current moment, we are not adding this. We want to see the first votes, how it happens. We will be able to see from chain analysis how people are splitting or not splitting that things. I would see that it's some of the whales might build a bot for these kinds of voting and these kinds of management, because otherwise you will not start 100 wallets to split everything and click to claim rewards and all kinds of things around that. So that's how I see. But once we start to see some bots, then I think we'll think about how to add maybe some kind of on-chain identity in order to actually have human voting or identity-based voting. But for that, this 100% with zero knowledge proofs, so no data on chain about the identity of the user, having it anonymous, only a verification for that. But we'll have to see later how everything works out in this way. I think we could, that's education and communication with all the way. It's important in this, in these regards. And we have quite a good distribution of tokens. So if you look around, there are 130 or 40,000 people who delegated their tokens. And if you look at how many people have liquid stake, then these numbers are way bigger. And so it will be interesting to see when everybody is voting. And I think that the better the distribution of tokens you have, the less these kinds of whale issues splitting into smaller funds will be.
Final part about adoption. The scalability part is developing your working on-chain governance and much more user-friendly systems that you are implementing on Multivers X. Where do you think the adoption is going? Ethereum and EVM-based chains have most of the liquidity and TVL. So how are you planning to overcome that? And where do you think the adoption is going as far as the Multivers X is concerned?
I think we shouldn't necessarily connect TVL with adoption. Because TVL can be, if we look around the TVL or how much people are actually providing liquidity in some of the systems, it's quite low. And we have a quite high number of people who are delegating if you look around that. So TVL, yes, it can be increased and it will be increased as more institutions get into the ecosystem, because they will bring out let's say the big dollars into the ecosystem. And as we build systems which is much safer for both users and both developers, think that there will be more and more companies coming to build on top of the ecosystem, build fintech applications or build other kinds of applications which will actually leverage the technology, like everything related to Web3 games, especially to metaverses, to virtual realities, to augmented realities, to creator spaces. I think it's one of the easiest way to create right now on Multivers X, any NFT systems, ticketing systems. You have full support on phone and everything. And these are actually resolve a lot of problems, for example, for tickets. And then when people are starting to realize that, yes, Multivers X, a system and an application like Portal, which is at least as safe as a banking account or a banking system, or even safer. And then developers started to realize that, yes, there are no re-entrance issues. And yes, I have to work only on my smart contract, my set of smart contracts, launch a token. I don't have to think about integration with any DEX because it's actually built into the protocol. And all kinds of these kinds of small additions help users to bring more users in and to bring all those institutions in. I think in this regards, not only the blockchain technology helps, but the whole vision of the Multivers X ecosystem. We have now a full payment provider system, a full bank, and the X Portal as an application. You will have your debit card there. You will have your bank account there if you want with IBAN. You will have connection, the chain. Simply, you will be able to connect to multitude of chains, cross-chain swaps, built-in on-ramp and off-ramp. And with integrate. So sovereign shards will be directly integrated because that's the standard, and they will be enjoy all the users the portal has, which is over 2 million right now. And then every institution which comes and introduce a new application, and then you will be able to simply connect with X portal. You can, with abstracting away everything related to gas token, for example, keeping it user safe, all these small details added upon, this will bring in the big adoption. Or with the new release of X alias, which actually creates a wallet for you directly from your Google login or Apple login. Again, it makes super easy for any user to join the ecosystem. But after that, so creating a wallet, it's not only the first step, but you have to add the gasless transactions, the relay transactions, paying with an NFT or paying with whatever subscription-based models. And although all these, we could call small, but let's say big innovations connected together are effectively eliminating all the barriers for entry for the users. It makes the whole system more usable. The user doesn't have to think too much. He is in a safe ecosystem where he can enjoy the multitude of applications. And then finally, all the builders and all the fintech and all the companies can actually leverage the technology without worrying about funds getting drained, funds getting lost, seed phrase getting lost, or all kinds of multitude of things. And I'm quite happy about the complete whole vision, because one technological innovation will not solve the mass adoption. It has to come with this multitude steps and multitude of innovations connected together, communicating together, and it will be possible when we create, and it's possible right now as we create a safer system for both users and developers. And we see even, for example, when with the launch of the phone, the multitude of unicorn companies which have been created because they can simply create a game or an application directly launch on a phone. When Unreal or Unity engine got free to use, or a super small subscription-based fee for that, and then people started to create more and more games. All these kinds of, so they created a better space for both the user and the developer, because the user was on the phone, the developer had the engine, and when you match those two and both of them can simply use those, and introducing Apple Pay directly on Play Store, I don't have to put my credit card account for 100 times, creates all kinds of complexities, which are actually good. This will lead to the actual mass adoption we want to have. And I think we at the Multivers X ecosystem, we have all the primitives needed now, which eliminates all the barriers in front of the user, all the barriers in front of any institution or any application developer. So they will be able to build better and the users to use the applications without actually needing that there is the blockchain.
Yeah, people don't have to think about interacting with the blockchain while using something that this complexity is abstracted away, that you are just using another application, financial application or game application. When we reach that level, then I think mass adoption will be automatically achieved.
Yes, that's for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Robert, for giving the time for this conversation. So I'm looking forward to hear more from you in the coming months.
We have a lot to build forward. So I welcome every builder to create.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you are keen on getting deeper insights about Web3 tech, our newsletter, Just the Metrics, is just what you need. It's packed with valuable information and it's completely free. You can subscribe by clicking the link in the video description. It's a great way to keep up with the latest in the Web3 space straight to your inbox. And before you go, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more updates and insights. Your support is what keeps these videos coming. So see you in the next video.